How you been?
Fantastic. It's been a very eventful couple months for me. So I live in a different state and a new home with a new job and all the things.
Yeah, let's. You want to talk a little bit about what your new role is, so everybody knows what you're doing now?
Yeah, sure. So I had the fortune of returning to my ultimate passion, which is combat game design specifically. Really all elements of gameplay, not necessarily combat, but especially combat, I guess. Yeah, so I've joined High Res Studios based out of Georgia. They're letting me be permanently remote currently from Raleigh, North Carolina. So that's where I've moved to. And yeah, I'm one of the senior game designers for Row Company, which, has been fantastic so far. Game's in beta. We're still figuring out some final details before we eventually launch it fully. And you can play it right now on the Epic Store if you want,
Most
or
excellent.
console. So
How
feel free
many
to check it out, tweet me, all that.
how many characters are there in the game right now, playable?
Oh my gosh, I should know that.
I mean, is it like I'm not even sure. Like, is it like dozens or is it a handful?
15, 20-ish.
Okay.
So there's a few like, in development, and then there's the live, and I play the in-dev build way more than live at the moment, so
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I'd say 15 to 20-ish. There's a few different roles, a few different, kind of play styles, on and on. Yeah.
So real similar to the kind of work you did on Agents of Mayhem with those agents. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually a big part of it, right? It's pretty funny when I went to Volition to do Agents of Mayhem, it was due to my passion of game design and the fortune of you and others believing in me and all that. And it was very PvE centric game design with the combat kits and the synergies and all that, and countering the enemies and the level design and on and on and on, all the relationships of the PvE design side. And so this time, it's a similar theme, but it's all PvP. So
Nice.
focused on all the player versus player interactions.
Yeah, there's no real issue with balance or anything when you're doing that. You don't have to care about that much at all, right?
It's, balance is one of the most challenging aspects of game design, and yeah, I'm excited to continue to support the balance and rogue development of all these upcoming rogues. Yeah, because that's
Nice.
kind of what I do now. Is I'm in the pipeline to support further rogue development in particular.
All right. So, since we're approaching this as generally people that are interested in game development in some way, what are the types of conferences? And because there's two main types, what are those, and what do you think are the major benefits for people that are interested in going to them?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way to start. So let's see. The cleanest way I could categorize game-related conferences are fan-based conferences versus developer-based conferences. Quick examples: fan-based conferences. You've got E3, BlizzCon, PAX is a Titan. Developer side, you've got GDC being the authority there, and lots of other ones around the world. And Gamescom as a non-North American one is a big deal for fans and partially for developers too. Some of them actually have a bit of overlap.
Yeah.
PAX as well. PAX seems to have a bit of overlap because there's a lot of developers on the floor. I've gone to PAX as a developer and fan at the same time, and really had the best of both worlds. In fact, I would immediately suggest that one of my PAX experiences was probably like among the best weekends of my life.
Hmm.
So big fan of PAX.
I still have not been to PAX Prime. I went to PAX East a couple times, but I need to get out to Seattle for that one in the near future.
Yeah.
So let's talk about fan ones first, just because I feel like we're going to get deeper into with like something like the Game Developers Conference. I think we're going to dig much deeper into like kind of how you want to approach those.
Sure.
So for the fan side, for me, I've attended, E3. Well, that was mostly as dev. Excuse me. And then BlizzCon once, which I have my shirt for here, and then a lot of other ones. But when you're talking about a fan conference, kind of what is the general goal when you're going to one of those?
Yeah, I think, gosh, community, right? Being a part of a something greater than yourself that brings you a lot of joy and passion, and just all the positives of community. Like every time I've gone to BlizzCon, it was due to community and or other specific people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big deal. Like the rooms are electric. Everyone celebrates together, especially using BlizzCon as the example again. You're sitting there at main stage in Hall D early morning on that Friday, and the opening ceremony is about to happen. You can just feel the intensity in the room and the excitement and the camaraderie.
Yeah.
They always do fun stuff. They're like, for the Alliance, for the Horde, you get both sides kind of, casually roaring at each other in the crowd and stuff. And yeah, it's a fantastic experience overall.
Yeah, I think the opening ceremony for BlizzCon reminded me very much of going to like a sporting event. You're there, and you're rooting for one team or another. Everybody's excited and getting loud and that kind of stuff. And it was really interesting to see that kind of like unison and unity across people, and all of it, regardless of like which side you're on. Everybody was in it together, and that was a really cool feeling.
Yeah.
So when you're going to this conference, community absolutely, I think, is a big part of what you want to do, but you're also probably looking for trying out some new content that's being talked about, seeing announcements for things that are coming. This kind of stuff is super important as developers as well. So you're keeping your pulse on the industry, right? You're seeing what's coming out, you're seeing how they're doing it. And I think there's some good lessons to be learned from how that stuff is presented.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. You were seeing the developers that you want to be like one day up on stage presenting this or that, and it's a whole different perspective to be able to watch them in their element. And plus, most of the time, I'd wager, just like most of us, they're nervous about public speaking. They're on stage, and part of them may not necessarily want to be on stage, but they have to be on stage. And yeah, it's very humanizing, and it's a wonderful, real experience, moment to moment with each announcement you're among, each demo you're standing beside, on and on. Because that's the thing, you have the distant view of you're in the crowd and they're on the stage and you're experiencing whatever is coming from the stage into your senses.
Yeah.
And then, there's demos all over the floor and stuff. And so you go to the other extreme and you're speaking to them one-on-one, face-to-face, and you have that moment to have their full undivided attention to discuss and share something that you're both passionate about, ideally being the thing being demoed right there.
Yeah.
So
ideally, yeah. And so now, even what we're also talking about currently is a developer-led, experience, right? Like this is all Blizzard. It's their stuff they're showing. It's all about that. Now, what about something like PAX, where when you come to PAX, there's not like a central theme necessarily, right? Like, well, it's lots of people are coming in and showing their things, and like there's a diversity of the kind of stuff that's there. So talk a little bit about what you're looking for, what kind of things are available at like a PAX.
Yeah. So PAX is huge, first of all, regardless of which region you visit with a PAX event. They take over a very large amount of space. I remember my first time to PAX East, which was also my first time visiting Boston. There was like a bridge I walked across once I was inside, and just looking out on their expo floor, it was, I would argue it was as large as GDC's expo floor. It was just truly massive. And instead of a lot of kind of titanic AAA developers on the floor, you have a lot of, smaller developers on the floor. And they even had a massive section in the back for analog efforts. So board games, card games, all that, and a huge amount of tables to play on and all this stuff. And, they get it. Like the first time I was at a PAX event, I was like, man, they understand their demographic. They understand me as part of their demographic, and this is going to be a fantastic event.
Yeah.
And certainly was. In fact, the shirt I'm wearing is from PAX East 2018, which again, one of the best weekends of my life. And Carrie Allen, who you've had on here before, joined me up there, and so we rented out an apartment for the weekend, and my fiance was with us as well, and we three had a really cool weekend. And Carrie got Amanda and I into the Bethesda Day. So I think it was on the Saturday of that event. The whole day was called Bethesda Day. And man, it was just super neato. Because we got to go in, we got to get all the free swag, all the kind of VIP stuff. Carrie totally hooked us up. And, I got to stand there beside people that I still think are like incredible people, like not necessarily idols anymore, but still like I look up to these people, like the game director of Elder Scrolls Online, huge fan of him and huge fan of the work of that team in particular. And to be able to just stand there and have a conversation and, you know, thank him for his contributions and his team's contributions. And, you know, he had one of the most amazing responses. He was like, yeah, you know, thank you for thanking us. We do it for you. And just that relationship, because it's true. We, as creatives, we are trying to create experiences for the fans and bring those fantasies to life in the ways they want. So, anyway,
if you're doing it right, that's what you're trying to do. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's interesting. You know, I think Bethesda also has bigger presences at various things, right? Do they have a conference of their own, or do they individuals? I know the QuakeCon, right?
Is effectively the BlizzCon of Bethesda.
Yeah. But then they also still have a big presence at other conventions, right? So you've got an opportunity to see the companies you care about when you go to any of these kind of major conferences.
That's right. Yeah. They had a presence at PAX in my experience, and I've gone to one QuakeCon 2019. I guess that was the last QuakeCon in person, and that was also a fantastic experience.
I'm going to that next one.
Yeah,
whenever that next one is.
It's so different, right? QuakeCon, just a tangent for a second. It's you know, the whole thing is it's a huge dark warehouse-esque room. I mean, you're in a nice hotel, but you know, so they turn it into a giant LAN party. So it's bring your own computer, tables and chairs for days, Ethernet cords everywhere, bunch of people getting sweaty in all the right ways with, you know, showing off all their big desktops and all their peripherals, and there's huge banners hanging from the ceilings. It's a very different but equally powerful and wonderful experience from other conferences I've gone to. That one was the most, like, I'm failing my vocabulary here. It was very accessible, but it also, like, yeah, you just walk in and there's just hundreds, if not thousands, of other people just like you know, more or less. Like, they're not game developers, but they have their jobs, they have their careers. We all share the same passion for, you know, id Software, Bethesda Game Studios, plenty of other ZeniMax properties. And yeah, so the bring your own computer bit was like the majority of it. And I got to hang out a lot with Kerry Allen again there. He was a great host for me. And Mark Diaz, another one you've had on here, made it super fun. And yeah. So that's the cool thing, is all these conferences have their own identity, have their own style, have their own itineraries, and the pacing of those itineraries are pretty different. Like, they all have talks and they all have demo floors, but the style in which all that is laid out and experienced by us as fans and attendees are radically different, which only adds to the value and the experience overall.
Yeah, and for those that have never been to a con like this, let's talk about BlizzCon and how it's set up, because I think people don't kind of understand what you're doing day to day, right? So we got there opening day. It was first thing, opening ceremonies, right? And they had, what, 4 stages, I think, or multiple stages with hundreds, like thousands of seats in each one, right? Like, just enormous, with screens and stages and everything. And for the opening ceremony, you could sit in any auditorium, and the screens would at least show you what was on that main stage, and it went across multiple stages as they talked, right? So you had a good opportunity to see someone on stage throughout that whole thing. And then after, so Gary, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. So, you know, that's the modern version of what it was. So I've had the fortune of going to 7 BlizzCons now. 7. And the early ones, in my experience, were all on the same main stage. And what was cool was that, you know, Blizzard learned, okay, BlizzCon's growing a little bit more every year. You're opening a few more tickets year over year. And so, yeah, exactly what you just said. They came up with the idea, which I think they've executed really well, which is, well, you know, we have a Hearthstone stage. We have a, you know, sometimes they always had like a StarCraft stage. Basically, most of their major IPs have their own stage, right? And so they were like, okay, cool, let's spread everyone out and make it more accessible. And so when it's time to talk about Hearthstone and the new upcoming stuff with BlizzCon and Hearthstone, we're going to pan over to that stage, and everyone over there who probably cares about Hearthstone the most is already there. They're right there at the stage. They're cheering it on. The energy's as high as it could be there. And then it's like, oh, well, you know, now let's talk about StarCraft 2 a few years ago. And then bam, you go to StarCraft 2. They've got a huge spaceship stage thing built, which is just mind-blowing, and you got to see it. You should Google it. It looks gorgeous. And that's what they compete in too for the esport. And you know, they do their thing. And then of course Overwatch, they built their arena, and on and on. So yeah, you know, it's really cool how it moves around like that. But the main stage, the Hall D main stage is still like where I've tried to be every single year.
Yeah.
And specific people that I've had the fortune of attending most BlizzCons with always are right there with me. And so we're outside, it's like 5 a.m. You're standing in front of the Anaheim Convention Center. You're waiting to get in. You're just kind of shooting the shit with other people standing around. You're making new friends. Because again, you're all there for the same general reason.
Yep.
And yeah, and as Blizzard games became more accessible and like Hearthstone, went mobile, so many times at the second half of my BlizzCons, I'm standing out there and it's like dawn, the sun's just coming up and people are like, yo, who wants to play Hearthstone? And we're just sitting there doing that as we're continuing to, chat about whatever. And the cosplayers are walking by on the side because there's a special lane for them outside in the front, right? So media and cosplayers are doing that.
So many cosplayers.
So much. Yeah.
And that just speaks to the community part of it, right? Like people are there to immerse themselves in this world, right? And now what we're talking about is quite a bit different than the GDC type stuff, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But this is all about, I love this thing. I'm here to be a part of it. And man, do they give you opportunities to be a part of it? Like after that opening ceremony, the next, what is it? It's 3 days overall, I think, right? 2 or 3 days.
It's a Friday and Saturday every year, technically.
Yeah. And so the rest of that time there's something on every stage all the time, right? From like 9 to 6 or whatever, right? Like the whole day is filled with talk after talk after talk. And so you as a consumer are there looking at these lists and being like, okay, at this time frame, which of these things do I care about? At the next time frame, which of these things do I care about? Because they've got something for every game. Then there's the eSports arena, and then there's just so many things going on.
Yeah.
And it's real easy not to get super overwhelmed, right? Because as I'm looking at all this, I'm like, oh man, these two things are at the same time. Which one do I care about more? Or can I see a little bit of both? Or, there's all those thoughts going in. And I think a major mistake, or at least in general that I've made at conferences, and I try not to make any more, is over planning my day and try to fit too much stuff in. Because one, you'll get exhausted. You'll not really appreciate as much of it as you're going to see, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, and you actually already hit a major thing I wanted to talk about, which was the companion app.
Yeah.
We'll stick with BlizzCon for this, but a lot of conferences have one. Like GDC has a companion app. PAX, I want to say, had a companion app. A lot of them do. And so, like Jameson was talking about, you want to build the itinerary for what you're going to do because that makes sense. You want to make the most of your experience there. And fortunately, through the companion app, again, BlizzCon being an example, you can watch stuff live streaming from your phone too. So very often, if you ever see me at BlizzCon, I'm sitting at a stage, half paying attention to one thing, looking at my companion app, half paying attention to another thing. I'm usually watching a competition, like I'm watching StarCraft or Overwatch or whatever. I'm watching the eSport on my phone because I'm not over there, while I'm listening to more of a developer-centric talk, or vice versa, depending. As the competitions, as the eSports become closer to the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, and all that, which is usually the second day, depending.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to spend the second day in eSports and the first day not in eSports.
Yeah.
And just use the companion app to keep up with the other side. And then beyond all of that, they record a lot of it.
Right.
And so you can access those recordings for a few days or weeks after the fact. They don't stay up too awfully long, I think, but they stay up long enough to where you can get home, get settled, and then catch up on everything you missed.
Yeah. Yeah, and then with the virtual thing, I think they're expanding that a bit, right, where we can see that stuff a little bit further. Sure. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's all the demos that are set up, right? So like the whole day you can stand in line to play, the Diablo mobile game or the new expansion for Heroes of the Storm or like whatever. Like there was just stuff everywhere. And so then you got to work into that. Okay, what's the wait over here? Do I want to miss the thing I had planned originally because I really want to see this game? Like there's a lot, there's so much going on.
There's so much. Oh, and actually, no, that's a great point because if I'm not at one of the stages, which about half the time I won't be because I need to be at a demo like you're talking about. So I'm either standing in line talking to people while I'm watching an esport on my phone. So it's like triple tasking, or I'm actually at the demo now and I'm playing it and I'm still talking to the people with me because most demos are multiplayer with Blizzard games. And so you're usually just kind of thrown into a pickup group. But this time, in reality, physically, you're sitting with these people. And it's a really cool way to meet even more people and make more friends.
Yes.
And Yeah. Yeah, the demos are fantastic. Demos for every game. I was really excited when I got to check out Diablo Immortal, which I still think is has fantastic potential. Um, yeah, you all have phones, so I saw the comment about phones.
Yeah.
You have phones. Like, come on. But yeah, no, it's just fantastic. Every single thing you do, whether it's passive or active, whether you're watching something or whether you're participating in a demo, the community is like the rock solid foundation to that, and just the buzz and the hype and the love. It brings so much joy to us, and depending on where we are in our lives, sometimes we need to use these video games as escape mechanisms or
Yeah.
other mental health support mechanisms. And that's a lot of what Blizzard was for me in the right times of my life, many years ago. And so yeah, it really plants a seed in you, and there's a love that you
Yeah.
don't feel anywhere else. Like the love I feel at GDC and other developer things are very different than the love I feel at BlizzCon.
I agree.
So
I agree. I think when you come to these, even if you are a developer, you have that in your mind, you care about the technical side of things, you're still a fan, right? Like you're there to be one of the group. And that BlizzCon and TwitchCon are the two cons I've been to where I felt that like really well. Like people were just like, everybody around me felt like me. And that was really nice.
Yeah. I'd say those are two of my top 3 experiences as well on that sentiment.
Yeah. So
QuakeCon being the other. So
what was the other one?
QuakeCon, which you'll get to experience soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make sure I'm at that QuakeCon that you go to. We'll have fun.
Let's do it. I'm down.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about what I think is the most important part of any con you go to. And we'll talk about this now before we move into GDC, but that's after hours, right? Like as soon as the con is over, that's when the networking begins. And that is the best part.
It is, it really is. I've in fact many times at those after hours parties and events, I have met people that only flew in for those.
Yep.
They don't even have like a BlizzCon ticket or whatever. And that's okay. That's a strategy, not a strategy I plan on doing, but I get it. And I've experienced the equivalent at GDC where people fly out there just for the night stuff. And yeah, it's incredible. It's the most honest environment you're probably going to get with the relatively like-minded individuals around you, all part of that community. And there's nothing quite like being in the Hilton lobby at the bar, at Anaheim with BlizzCon. Like, you and I got to hang out there that Thursday evening. We caught up with a ton of people we knew from all over the world, really. There were people even from other countries coming in for BlizzCon that I got to catch up with. And yeah, that's just another great thing is you'll just be like, oh my God, you're here. And oh my God, I'm here. And we got to find each other. And almost always it's like, see you at the Hilton lobby, because that is the place to be.
Yeah. And that's the important part to realize is the hotel bars, especially there's one or two at each con. That's where it ends up being the action. That's where everybody hangs out, like literally everybody. And so you'll have parties, right? Like you'll have each companies will throw a night party or whatever for a few hours, but that's not really where most people are.
That's right. And even if when those things happen, like I'll show up, I will make my presence known to whoever I'm wanting to make my presence known to. But yeah, usually you don't spend just a few minutes at those parties because you want to get back to the core area of the lobby and whatnot.
Yeah. It's so cool too, because like the bar or the hotel bar vibe is like my favorite vibe, because it's literally grab a drink and stand around and talk to people. Like that is about, as long as for me, as long as I know somebody and I'm not just there like trying to get into a conversation, that's super stressful. But if I know somebody that's cool to hang with and kind of, figure out the space with, that is ideal for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that just made me think a strategy. I'm just going to be organic through this conversation.
Yeah.
Like that a strategy that I found that works really well for me. So take this with a grain of salt. Your style may be a bit different than mine, but we put ourselves in the scenario where we're at the Hilton lobby, we're at that bar. Mm-hmm. It's a big floor, but there's a few pillars. There's really loud music going, on and on. Maybe you and I are standing there talking about something. and maybe someone, and I'm reversing my strategy here, maybe someone is kind of eavesdropping on what you and I are talking about. And then they just kind of casually turn in our direction and make a comment that fits in with our conversation. And now they're immediately a new addition to the conversation.
Yep.
And I will turn and fully engage them and be like, oh, yeah, blah, blah. And we'll talk about it for a moment. And then, you stop and you're like, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm Will and you're so-and-so and great. Nice to meet you. Where are you from? And you switch to get them to talk about themselves a moment so they can feel even more included with us. And it's just kind of standard basic networking protocol that you do.
Man.
But again, that's kind of the reverse version, because that's what I do is I'll eavesdrop straight up on people's conversations in an environment like that lobby and just kind of slide my way in and be like, blah, blah, blah.
Man, and, you gave like 5 pieces of wisdom right there that we need to touch on, right? Because 100%, like everybody asks, or they say, I don't know how to get into a conversation. I don't know how to meet people. I don't know how to network. All that stuff. It can be difficult, right? Like it can be stressful. It depends on your personality type, the kind of things that you're comfortable with. So the kind of things I recommend is 1, have a buddy with you, right? If at all possible, or meet someone there. So you have someone you can always be talking to and move with. And so you're not just the creepy guy in the corner, right? That kind of vibe.
100% super important. Oh my God, super important.
And then the next thing you talked about, I love so much from both perspectives, which is that whole just kind of jumping in on someone's conversation is totally cool. And like you'll be able to tell if it's like these people are talking about something that's not welcoming, right? And right. you can feel that out. But there's also a little bit of like tact that has to go into this, right? Like you can't jump into a conversation with something that's not completely relevant. It has to be super relevant. Right. It has to be part of the conversation. And that can be difficult for some people. So you have to make sure you're doing that. Don't go in changing the subject. Don't come in introducing yourself or cutting someone off. Those kind of things are really tough. But the thing you said, which is like, if you can find an opportunity to just like throw in a comment that's relevant, like actually relevant, you're welcome. Almost every conversation is going to welcome you in. And people will shift and move to physically bring you into the conversation pretty quickly.
Yeah. That body language it tells you the vast majority of what you need to know in the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. If they adjust it all for you, bam, you're in.
Yep.
If they're not adjusting at all, you should close and move on.
Correct. Yep. 100%. And that's rare. That's rare.
The rules you just said, but you're spot on. Definitely follow those rules. For example, even though it's kind of a crowded environment in a lot of these cases, I'm always looking at shoes.
Oh yeah.
I have a decent knowledge of shoes. I've had some friends that have really elevated my knowledge of shoes. So in particular, if I see someone over there rocking like a particular pair of shoes that I can say something intelligent about, because they're clearly, well, I'm assuming they're a shoe person to some degree, I will also use that as my way in. And be like, hey, I'm so sorry. I know how rare those are. And I just wanted to say how awesome they are. You are, the whole get up you have right now. You just look dope. I would word it better than that. Right. But the sentiment is what I would share. And many times that's been successful. Once in a while, it's awkward. So you're flipping a coin with that one. But if they dig it, that's another cool way to get in. And again, you just can't be afraid to close and move on. When something is not going exactly the way you want, be like, all right, cool, thanks for your time, dip.
Yeah.
Or don't even say anything, just dip. It's loud anyway. You can just kind of turn and walk away and shimmy away and it's fine. No one cares. No one's going to remember.
In those cases, it's real easy to just be like, okay, bye. It's totally fine. And if you don't feel like you're welcome in that conversation, then it's not going to be uncomfortable just to step away from it, right? Like it's totally okay. And that's going to happen. It's okay, right? Like it will happen occasionally. It's rare. I think it's more often you'll get pulled in, or at least people will give you the benefit of the doubt and give you an opportunity to join in a conversation. It may not last very long depending on how you contribute, but you'll get that opportunity generally. Yeah.
And now, there's been other talks in the past with your channel about branding a bit and that kind of thing. And like, there's so many topics that have been covered by you in the past that all tie into this web of convention going. And I just want to tangent into branding for a second, because as some of you know, I used to rock Vegeta hair for a long while before the pandemic, and it will return. Don't worry. But that hair was part of my brand, is part of my brand to some extent, right? And so if I'm in that same scenario and I'm in the Hilton lobby at BlizzCon and someone else has incredible hair, we're immediately bonding over that. I'm going to go up to that person, praise their hair, gauge their reaction and then engage further based on their reaction to me. And almost always that goes super well.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we'll get into subjects like, well, what products do you use or what methods do you use? And this is super deep stuff that most people listening to my voice right now do not care about. But the fact that I have to flip myself upside down for a moment to use gravity to do a particular step of my hair stuff. I know that sounds funny, but it's a real thing. And other people that are big hair people can appreciate that too. And so, there's just the nuance just adds more validity, and I don't know. It's just, it adds so much more bonding to the moment between you and the other people that care about the thing.
Well, I mean, I think the thing you're talking about is connection, right? And for each person, that connection could be a number of things. So I think the more things that you're comfortable talking about, the more opportunities you have to make that connection with people. And so like for you, it's like, these are things you care about. When you see it, you're in because you can talk about that thing. Right. And that is super valuable. And I think there's a lot of those opportunities for people that care about things. And I think you can also take the time to care about things will benefit you in those situations.
Yep, absolutely.
But then there's also
just like a million options when it comes to this scenario. So when people kind of stick to their friend that's in the room or stay in the corner awkwardly or whatever, like I get it. I went through that too. I made all those same mistakes. But you just push through, you eventually become more and more comfortable with these situations, and you realize every time you get a little better at these networking skills, especially at conferences, you realize like, man, I have a million options in front of me. There are hundreds of ways for me to do things well this evening. There's far more ways to do it right than do it wrong, basically. So yeah.
It ultimately comes down to comfortability and confidence, right? Like being willing to make those moves, right, and start those conversations.
Yeah. And a lot of that confidence, for me at least, comes from my knowledge of whatever the thing is. Like we're at BlizzCon, I'm like, I don't want to tell you how many days time, weeks time, months time I have logged in /played for World of Warcraft or other Blizzard products, right? Or other things. But when I'm there and we're talking about something Blizzard related, pretty good chance I can speak relatively intelligently about it. And I mean, that just adds a ton of value. Because I've had people try to talk to me that are just kind of generic. They're just kind of saying real generic things. They're not adding anything meaningful to the conversations. And I'm going to be nice. I'm empathetic to them because I'm sitting there thinking like, you're clearly new to this and or for some reason still not good at this. So I'm still giving the body language of you're welcome to stand here and you're welcome to talk. But, there's a lot of folks that don't add value to whatever the circumstance is.
That is
true. And so
true.
then when you're on the other end, you also want to think about how can you enable them and help them grow and just help this experience become even more for them. Because in a way that's even cooler to do. Like I find great pleasure in helping people make the most of whatever their situation is.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think there's also there's ways to get into a conversation initially too because I think, you've talked about creating opportunities based on something that something that you can pinpoint and that you can kind of launch into with to create that, bond pretty quickly. Right. But there's another common tactic that I don't think people are always aware of, and that's to get the other person talking, right? Because everybody wants to talk about themselves, right? Whether they realize that or not, because more about you than anyone else. You're the best person to talk about that subject, right? So in this industry, it almost, I would say this happens at least 9 times out of 10. If you ask somebody, what have you been playing lately? You're going to start a conversation, right? And and then you got to be ready to come back with what you've been playing, right? And but you can at least start a conversation by getting them talking. Yeah,
that is the simplest, most accurate strategy. I can't think of a better strategy than that. If all else fails, ask someone to talk about themselves in some relevant way.
Yeah.
You're at BlizzCon, you're like, oh, well, what Blizzard products are you most into this year or whatever, just like you said. That cannot fail unless you have already creeped them out to the point of where they don't want to speak to you.
Yeah.
So,
that should definitely be an early part of the conversation, right? I got asked that a lot at BlizzCon, and I was like, I'm actually not a huge Blizzard guy, right? So I didn't have deep knowledge to talk about a lot of things, but I was able to talk about the things I cared about and the experiences I've had. Everyone can do that, right? I might not follow the whole conversation from that point on, but you also can be kind of open about that too, and make that part of the conversation.
Yeah. And there have been events. So we'll keep using BlizzCon as the example for now. Like one of my first BlizzCons, I was there with one of my dear friends, Greg, and a couple of the folks that work at BlizzCon or work at Blizzard that I love too. So we were all there and hanging out, and there was a trivia contest of sorts. You sit down with your buddies, you go through World of Warcraft trivia. This was a long time ago. This was like BlizzCon 2013 maybe. And when they came that out, it was a Trivial Pursuit whole thing. And anyway, we got to sit there and we got to play through this. And based on how we finished, we got a bunch of prizes and like a whole goodie bag of stuff. And that was cool because some of the people that were in that same trivia competition were not part of my group. And so it was just another icebreaker, so to speak, where I got to interact with other people and celebrate them when they got something right and be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. That's amazing that you knew that. And it's all just low-hanging fruit to network further.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Anything else that you think is important to talk about with our fan conventions before we dig into something like GDC? Because we're going to probably be on that for a while.
Yeah, a couple ancillary tips, right? Like if you want to go to one, schedule it as far in the future as you possibly can. If you reasonably can. Like hotels get crazy fast and sell out quickly. A
lot of people find roommates and stuff for that too, right? To help cut costs.
Yeah, totally. Especially early on and where you are in your career and stuff. Yeah, there were years where I totally piloted a hotel room with like 5-6 other people.
Yeah.
Oh, because that stuff is not cheap, especially when you're going to Southern California, really anywhere in California for these conferences. And yeah, that's totally a valid strategy. I have slept in floors as much as I have slept in beds.
Nice.
And I do it all over again because that's an experience too, right? Like it all adds up to this huge, wonderful experience in weird ways you don't expect. But yeah, there was like a year where I mentioned my buddy Greg earlier. I go to most BlizzCons with him on the side, and he was like, "Okay, I got this room this year. Let's stay with this person." And Heroes of the Storm was relatively new at the time. I'm a huge Heroes of the Storm fan in general, and one of the guy that had the room that we were staying with he was like the designer on the latest map for Heroes of the Storm. And I'm just like, oh my God, networking opportunity to the extreme, like immediately. And so, I got to hang out with him a bunch and talk about that stuff. And all those little things can just happen by piling into a hotel room with other people.
Yeah.
So
man,
that's a big part.
Connections. I want to talk about that for just a second because
sure.
Every single person knows at least one other person, right? So you are going to meet so many people, and it's so, because like that was one of the benefits I loved about going there, because you knew so many people, and that was not my scene, right? That was not my community. So I got to meet a lot of cool people just because I knew you, and like that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, and as a side note, all the Full Sail grads that happened to be there the year you were there, like between you and I both just calling our banners, we had like we took over that bar,
That's
man. Like
true.
we had the Hilton Lobby bar pretty unlocked with Full Sail grads that happened to be at BlizzCon for a while. And that I'll always cherish those couple hours, man. That was super cool and unexpected.
That's a lot of fun. And that you'll find Full Sail grads everywhere. So those kind of things can happen pretty quickly too.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to think if there's anything else about fan stuff off the top of my head. So yeah, hotel stuff matters. Travel obviously matters. So again, it's about booking way in advance to get your prices down as well as you can. Flights are kind of the main way to get around, of course. I've got friends that'll take a train to things like GDC, maybe even do the train jam. We'll get into all that shortly. I'm just saying other, traversal methods to get where you want to be.
One other thing I always recommend to people is to take an additional collapsible suitcase inside of your current one that you can make into a swag bag, and you can check that to bring stuff home. So,
yep, that's very smart. I've always failed at doing that. I can't recommend what you just said enough, though. My version, which is the lesser version, is because it costs me more money. Is whatever hotel I'm in, or regardless of what hotel I'm in, the main hotels that are there with like the Anaheim Convention Center or something equally big have like shipping stations. They have like a UPS or a FedEx or whatever. And you can just walk in there with all your swag and be like, I need this to go home. And then, you're the millionth person that's walked in with a bunch of swag saying that. So they already know exactly how to hook you up. And they handle it and ship everything home for you. And then you don't have to even think about it again. So Yeah, your method is cheaper. My method is a bit more convenient. Both
Yeah.
are very applicable. And I've had to leave a lot of swag behind, and that sucks. So after I kind of left swag behind in the hotel room my first couple years, I was like, this is a terrible method. So I became a bit more disciplined and realized, okay, maybe I can make this a better situation with my swag. So towards the end of the second night of BlizzCon, the final night of BlizzCon, I'll find people that I, for whatever reason, think they might care about this particular swag, and I'll just walk up to them and be like, "Hi, would you like this? I don't have a way to get it home, and I want to make sure it finds a good home." And we're talking, big posters with developer autographs all over it, or whatever came out of the loot boxy things from the Dark Moon Fair, because the Dark Moon Fair is always active at BlizzCon, and that's a fantastic bit, or whatever. And I hope I found good homes for a lot of stuff. And I hope that they, had a slightly better experience because some random dude with spiky hair walked up and gave them something, relatively neat.
Yeah, regardless of what if they cared about the thing, the fact that you did that meant something to every one of them, right? So like that's really cool. That's really cool.
And then I guess the only other thing to mention, and this is very different depending on each fan convention, but most of them have something here. Like at BlizzCon, so it's Friday, Saturday, when it's in person, and the Sunday is usually known as Blizneyland, because Disneyland is literally across the street from the Anaheim Convention Center right there. And so a ton of people that went to BlizzCon now spend their Sunday at Disneyland.
Okay.
And when you're walking around Disneyland, it's pretty easy to tell who else was just at BlizzCon.
Nice.
Right. So that's a whole other day of being able to still celebrate the community and blend it in with the second community a bit and just walk around the park and have a great time. And Blizneyland, I have never done it. And every year I say I'm going to do it. So I'll do it next year. Right. And everyone that does do it just praises the hell out of it. So I've really got to stay an extra day at some point and do that.
Executive says, why is there not a Blizzard theme park yet? I could see that being a thing at some point.
The United States we are not the most advanced culture when it comes to these things. You look at some particular Eastern cultures, and they have some really cool theme parks and stuff,
Yeah.
And even more global theme parks like Universal or something has very specific IPs located in very specific geographic locations that really elevate that. So, yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool if the United States engaged that a bit more culturally.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, we had a Halo traveling theme park, a couple years ago. So maybe there's hope.
Heard of that.
I wouldn't know anything about that, but
yeah. Right. So those things are cool. Those things are super cool. And I think from as creatives, we should do that. We should do that all we can as a business perspective, like ROI. Is it really worth the amount of investment it takes to do it?
Yep.
I'm sure that's why it doesn't happen enough, because those types of perspectives shut it down or prevent it from happening.
Yep.
But, I immediately think of when Epic Games had their Durr Burger food truck that went to different places. That was amazing. Or even Elder Scrolls had their food truck that went around with, Elder Scrolls foods. That's amazing. Now I can only think of food truck examples, but there are others,
still amazing.
Like the Halo Outpost that you mentioned. And all of that, so damn cool for the fans.
Yeah. Yep. But that's also why we have something like BlizzCon, right? Like that is a huge, it feels like a theme park, right? Like there's not rides there, but the immersion level is high.
Yeah. I prefer it over a theme park personally. Yeah.
They also could integrate some more interactive elements and that kind of stuff if they really wanted to. So, but that kind of stuff could get pulled into that.
Yeah. I think that's a natural evolution for these events. I'm sure they'll continue to play with that idea
as we start to have real events again.
Yeah. Oh, thank goodness. Right. Yeah.
All right. I think it's time for us to jump over to the Game Developers Conference. So in my opinion, the Game Developers Conference it's a must for people that are new developers, want to be developers, are developers, right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. What is your overall impression of GDC and kind of its value?
Yeah, I don't have enough words for this one. My tone's going to completely shift now from excited fan to just tremendous. GDC in particular, is a true reminder of so many valuable things that help me be a good human being. Like, it is the most humbling experience every year. It is a week. I never went to camps as a child, but I imagine this is kind of what like a game developer camp, so to speak, because I'm out there for 7 or 8 nights. I've been a conference associate every single time I've ever gone to a GDC, which I'm super blessed to always, or so far have always been selected to come back as a conference associate, and we'll get into that shortly. But being able to have the lens of I am part-time operating GDC and I am part-time attending GDC is the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it reminds you of exactly where you stand when you're walking around those expo floors and going into all these talks, and you're surrounded by a ton of people way smarter than you at the thing. It is, I mean, ideally, if you're thirsty, and you should always be thirsty or hungry or whatever metaphor you want to use, go in there as a sponge and you're going to learn so much, right? And by the time I get through every weekday of GDC, my mind is blown in so many ways. I'm equally exhausted and excited mentally for everything that just happened. And yeah, GDC, that's what it does. And that's just the daytime. The daytime is just so educational and daytime networking and, all the basics there. And then of course there's the evening versions, which get into lots more networking, but still also some educational moments depending on what you're doing. And yeah, I could ramble about this forever. So direct to me.
Yeah, no, there's so much, and let's talk about the structure of it a little bit, just so people can understand how it works, because it's similar in that there's an opening type ceremony, right? Like there's kind of initial, isn't there, or is it just the closing there? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, so it's different. It's not an opening ceremony like BlizzCon. You come in Monday morning. I mean, really, the opening ceremony is fighting through registration. Most people are coming in Monday morning and Wednesday morning because, right. So yeah, kind of like you're saying, let's talk about architecture for a second. So GDC has a bunch of passes you can purchase that have a bunch of different access bits. And so GDC, 5 business days long, right? So a Monday to a Friday generally. It's for the past many years, roughly decade, maybe slightly more, it's been in downtown San Francisco, California, in the Moscone Convention Center.
Yep.
Great. The first 2 days of GDC, you can see all this on their website. So if you just Google GDC, you can see the notes I'm basically saying. But the first 2 days are known as the workshops, the summits, the tutorials are some of the keywords that we use out there. And basically they are 8-hour-long sessions dedicated to your discipline. And that's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. It's also expensive, but that's amazing. Yep. Like the fact that I can spend all day Monday and all day Tuesday at something like the game design workshop, and I'm sitting in there with titanic game designers that are 1,000% better than me at the craft, and me learning from them every moment I'm sitting in there every year, phenomenal. Or as a conference associate, I'm working that particular event. So I'm spending half or the full day assisting them while they educate and work with all these other attendees. So it's a killer experience either way. And then, if you're in here and you're a level designer, right? The level design in a day is a fantastic thing that happens on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday of GDC, for every GDC I've ever been to, level design in a day has existed. And, top level designers from all these super badass products and studios go up there and spend, 30, 60 minutes each covering some topic, discussing it, doing a Q&A about it, and super eye-opening. It's just so many different perspectives on the same craft. Because you might think, oh, I'm a level designer. Okay, great. But what kind of level designer? Because, when someone always tells me they're a game designer, I'm like, neat. What kind? Because that is such a vague statement. But, we've gotten to the point in our craft where even if you do answer me back with, oh, well, I'm a level designer. Neat. What kind of level design? Because there's quite a few different sub-disciplines there that all have very intricate rules and processes that support their craft. And the cool thing is you go to something like Level Design Today and you can just witness all the different perspectives, whether the perspective is based on type of level design, which often would, be derived from genre, or it's more of, well, I'm from this studio and we tend to do things this way for this reason, or it's because we work in Unreal or Unity or our own proprietary technology, and therefore we have these constraints or these options. And there's just the perspective. I can't stress enough. That is the word here, perspective.
Yeah.
it'll change you. It'll change you every time for the better. It's super neat.
Yeah. And
But I super tangented down that pipe. So back to architecture real quick, and I'll try to make this simpler. First 2 days are that, right? The 8 hours per discipline, super neat stuff. And as a side tip, maybe you are a game designer like me, but you might say have a passion for artificial intelligence like I do.
yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, well, maybe I should go to the artificial intelligence summit, even though it's focused on programming and it's going to probably hit some deep stuff that I'm grossly not qualified to really be a part of. I can still sit there. I can be a fly on the wall. I can take notes. I can just sit in awe of the things that they're discussing and going over. And so I've done that some years, and that's cool. But anyway, you do the first 2 days, great. Most people come in on Wednesday morning or start their GDC on Wednesday morning because
Right.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is the expo.
Yep.
It's significantly cheaper, like 10, give or take 10% the cost of what a full ticket cost.
Yeah.
So most people come for that. The expo floor, again, is open for those 3 days. Opens at like 10 a.m. that Wednesday morning usually, goes until 3 p.m. that Friday afternoon usually, if I'm recalling right. And, that's the time to get face-to-face with all these developers that you care about. So where you're educating yourself in the first half of GDC, now you're on the expo floor being more in the trenches for the second half. And then that whole time, if you have something like the main conference pass, the main conference tag basically means here's a bunch of talks that weren't quite part of the 8-hour tutorial summits and that kind of thing, and aren't really quite the expo, but they're like more or less these 1-hour segments that are just all throughout. And there's like hundreds of these things.
Yeah.
So you can really, especially using the GDC companion app, right? Plan all this out and really seize the day every single day.
Yeah. So let's talk. We had a question about how not to get overloaded. And, I talked about this a little bit before because there's a lot going on, and that app allows you to kind of figure out what your best plan is and that kind of thing. My philosophy is generally to come in with like filling an app of something I would do every hour if possible, right? Like I've completely loaded up my entire day, but I do that with the intention of not actually doing all of it. It's more of if I have time this hour, I'm going to go do this thing. Or, you know what I mean? Like if I want to take a break now, it just means that I miss out on this talk. So I think there's an opportunity there to make sure that you can maximize the time that you have without feeling like you have to overload yourself and do everything that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really just depends on where you are and everything. Like I don't think I've gone to a talk in 3 GDCs maybe. But in my early years, and this may be different for anyone else, but for me, the more junior I was, the more engaged I was with the educational side. And as I approached more seniority, the less engaged I was with that, because most content at GDC is a bit more junior than senior.
Yeah.
I'd say more than half of it, definitely, that's a true statement. And so that's not to say there's still not tremendous value for anyone senior. Of course there is, but there's a diminishing return to it. So I then, started asking myself, well, how can I use my time best for my goals? And that really came down to, I use day and night to network.
Yeah.
Because I can watch the majority of those talks on the GDC Vault afterward.
True.
And the GDC Vault you can subscribe to, annual subscription. It's a few $100. Last I checked, it was like 500. I'm not really sure where it is now, kind of coming out of the pandemic and stuff, but that's the thing, right? So most talks are recorded, and
some are free, right? Like they'll unlock older talks and things like that as you go too.
Yeah, right. The database is huge for all the things, and a lot of it's free, whether it's from the YouTube channel or GDC Vault itself. There's a lot of talks that are accessible right now for you for free that you should totally check out. But yeah, so knowing that I have that option to its maximum potential, I don't spend my precious time standing in San Francisco at a talk anymore. I spend my precious time at whatever the events are that I think can enable me to meet more people.
Yeah.
And not generically, right? It's not about, I, from a quantity perspective, have gained 100 business cards today. That's stupid. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I hate when people think that way. Like, it's like when you throw 200 resumes to 200 job interviews and you spray and pray. I don't know. I don't think that's wise. But, it's about quality. It's about the meaningful moments you can find. And sometimes you weren't ready for that opportunity that fell in front of you. There
Yeah.
were many times where I've been like, oh, that's a networking bit I need to get to. And I'm there and I'm in the room and I'm even kind of speaking up once in a while. And afterward, I wouldn't rate that event a success for me, like that particular hour or whatever it was, that round table, whatever it was. There's a lot of times where I did not deliver what I thought I was going to deliver on. And so, as just a side note, it's about just picking yourself back up after those and still ask yourself, okay, well, what did I gain? How did I grow? Because at minimum, I learned something not to do again.
Right.
Right. Like each blow is a lesson, never to be repeated if you're smart about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I learned, at least from my perspective with 20 years in the industry, anything that is like an intro to or doesn't say something more like advanced is probably not worth my time as far as a learning experience. I can definitely glean what I need to off of that later. Right.
Sure.
And sitting in those rooms listening, the only thing that you can do is absorb the content that's going on in there. Right. So I think that, like you're talking about, that's limiting your ability to better yourself, like to specifically this piece of content that you can also get later.
Yep.
And so I want to talk a little bit more about what you were just saying about the quantity over quality. I don't know how often I've told this story, but so my very first job, I was working with a new startup of guys that had worked. Most of them had worked at Variant on EverQuest. They started a new studio. And then one of the guys came from Wizards of the Coast. And so this studio was like a bunch of like people that are very, very good at what they do, notable people. And I'm in awe, right? Like I'm surrounded by these people doing amazing stuff. So they take the entire company to GDC. There's like 12 of us. And this is where I first learned what GDC is about. And I learned it right away, which is you come and you hang out. What we did was we hung out in the bars at night. We met people and they introduced me to so many people. I got to meet so many awesome people. And I had a stack of business cards of people that I had met. I probably had about 20 cards. A few months later, that company shut down. And so now here I am a few months into the industry, already lost my first job. So I start emailing every one of those business cards. Hey man, it was nice meeting you at GDC. Just so you know, I'm looking for work. Just wanted to check and see if you had anything available. Again, it was nice to meet you, that kind of thing, right? Reminding them that we actually met, kind of touching on what we had interacted about before, whatever. And some of those business cards, though, I'm gonna be honest, we might have been drinking a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And I don't remember all those interactions.
Sure.
But I'm gonna email and act like I remember. So.
Sure. Absolutely, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. One of the people that I emailed, I did not remember at all, but he was the CEO of another company. And he's like, yeah, I'm always looking for designers. Come on in. We'll do an interview. And that was how I got my interview, and my second job in the industry was off of that interaction.
That's wild.
I don't know if he actually remembered me or not, but he might've been like me. He's like, oh yeah, I remember you, like whatever. I don't know, but it worked.
Yeah, no, and that's fascinating that works, because this is one of those moments where we respectfully disagree on something, right? Like if you emailed me, say 6 months after you got my business card at GDC, and we have not interacted since GDC, I don't want to respond to you. I don't want to respond to you. Maybe I still will, maybe, depending on my mood, but like
it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long. It was only a couple months. It was only a couple months.
Because generally the rule that a lot of us stress at GDC is, after GDC, you've got all this contact information, get home, get your mind right, recover from that however you need to for a week or two, and then you better reach out to everyone that matters. Like follow up on LinkedIn, follow up on Twitter, follow up via email, whatever it is for you. And in most cases where I have done that and or people have done that to me, it's turned out really positive for both of us. Yeah, it's really important because we're human. And the other thing is, I'm not trying to sound like an asshole earlier with my statement. I'm just saying, like, I don't even remember you, depending on how far along it's been since that GDC. So if this random name is contacting me beyond the duration in which I might remember you, whatever that is for the individual, it diminishes your chances on getting a positive return from that engagement.
Dude, I 100% agree with you. Like,
Sure.
I would give the same advice as you.
Sure.
And what I was doing was a complete shot in the dark that happened to work.
I'm glad it worked.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this is not me giving advice to do that. It's just me saying this is all I knew to do, right? Like this was my entire network at that point. And so I'm like, I got to try something, and luckily it worked. But this was also 2001, so our opportunities were much less back then.
Right. No, yeah, I can only imagine. Man, I was 15. And you were like, right,
Oh man. 15.
There's not that many years between us, but it's funny when I hear you talk about the early days, and I'm like, yeah, what grade was I in? And then everyone listening to us is probably like, wait, was I born yet? So, yeah. But no, that's cool. That's super cool. And I can't stress that enough. Just the follow-up. The follow-up is everything. Closing, always be closing, right?
Yeah.
That is, one, an amazing scene in film, but two, very, very true. Always be closing. So, yeah, afterward, it's really important because the rest doesn't matter. The means matter, right? The means totally matter. But if the end wasn't, I don't know, relatively useful to you, then the means kind of become irrelevant in a lot of cases. So,
yeah. So
got to deliver all the way through.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, because what I don't want people doing when they're making the connections is trying to close, right? Like what I want people to be thinking about, or at least the way that I like to approach this, is when you're making a connection with someone, make a connection, get to know them, connect on some level, talk about game, like do something that makes them remember you and that you remember them. Right.
Yeah, be genuine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Be mutually beneficial. Try to make a real friend out of this, or at least a real acquaintance.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because the second anyone feels like someone's coming to them to gain something, it's very off-putting, right? Like it's give me an opportunity to understand why I should care about you first, right? Like let's make some kind of connection, almost to the point where work stuff is not even involved yet, right? Like we're literally like, we are just people that care about the same kind of things. We're making a connection, right? But that closing, I think, happens right afterwards, right? Where like in some time afterwards, you connect with them through an email, you add them on LinkedIn, whatever, you use the connection that you made in person to start a relationship that can eventually be beneficial to one or both of you. And that could be a long way down the road, right? But you've made that connection.
Yeah. And that's a whole other really important point there. There have been times, there continue to be times where people that I have met many years ago now, it all comes full circle one way or another. And whether it's like, oh yeah, I met that dude at GDC 5 years ago. He's cool. We should interview him, or whatever the the case is. That's a very real thing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, a huge deal.
My new lead designer at my new company, right? I used to be a fan of his, right? Like I used to watch him in MLG way back in the day, and then now I'm here and I'm like, what a crazy life this is. So yeah, there's tons of examples of that.
Yeah, and so someone just said they partially disagree with job fairs, and that's I get that, right? I think the job fair is a different thing, because the whole purpose of a job fair is to connect jobs with people, right? Like you're not networking at that point. Right. You're basically presenting yourself in a particular light. Yeah.
You're just trying to get the interview. The whole purpose of standing in a line to go up to that booth to have 30 seconds of their attention and hand them your resume is totally just to land that interview. The expo floor is not too different at times. If there are recruiting booths on an expo floor at a game convention, that's almost exactly how it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
And even conferences like BlizzCon have a recruiting area. So most studios that run their own conferences still have a recruiting bit.
Right. And in those moments, though, the reason I want to talk about this specifically is that is not the time where you're going to make this kind of connection that we're talking about, right? Everybody's in business mode. Right. You might find an opportunity to connect with someone, and you should try to, but everybody's in like, I know you're here to get something from me. Right. So everybody's already got that wall up. You know what I mean? You got to break through that if you're going to do it there. And that's tough. That's really tough. You've got to look better than everyone else they've talked to today in order to like really kind of break through and get on their mind.
Yep. And you have to do it in their very subjective view of whatever they're looking for.
Yeah. Which you don't know unless you can convince
Right.
them to tell you, right? And then present yourself in a way that is a good light in comparison to what they're talking about. That's not easy, especially in that quick amount of time.
Right. I mean, the only underlying truth I found in situations like that I've been in is basically how can I quickly determine how I can make their life easier? And if I successfully figure that out in the first few seconds of a conversation, I can generally drive the conversation to result in some useful end for both of us.
Yeah.
And if I can't figure that out, I generally miss the mark and just walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice I'll give about job fairs, this is a little off topic, but I want to throw this out there. You generally know what companies are going to be present at these before you go there.
Right.
And you absolutely can go look at their website to see what positions they have available. So you can go in prepared to present yourself as someone who's good for a particular role. And you should do that. Like if you go in talking to them about presenting yourself for something they're not looking for, then that's not good for anybody. Maybe they'll say they'll put you on a list, or, they'll contact you if something comes up. That's not your goal. You should be in there being like, hey, I saw you guys have this. Here's why I'm good for that. That if you can do that pretty quickly because you've done all the legwork up front.
That's right. Being prepared is a huge part of luck and all that. So
absolutely. Let's see. How have you guys been networking during COVID? I found a lot of success in Twitch and Twitter and have made a bunch of solid connections over at Respawn. I was wondering if you got what you guys would do for recommending, or what you would recommend for remote networking.
So I would separate remote networking from networking during COVID-19 pandemic.
True. I agree.
They're both remote, sure, but man,
one is temporary.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking for myself, I haven't done any networking during the pandemic. I have been incredibly reclusive and, gone through my own changes in my life in the past year plus. And so, yeah, no, again, personally speaking, I haven't networked hardly at all, which is weird for me because usually this is a pretty high priority for me personally. But, before that, just remote networking in general, you're already suggesting a lot of the right things, Cloak and Kill. Twitter's huge. Twitter's been an authoritative presence of the game industry for more than a decade.
The whole time,
yeah. Yeah, and that continues to be a thing. Twitch, as it's continued to grow these past few years, it's another great call for sure. Gosh, what else? I mean, there's I haven't done this in years now, but there used to be like a meetup.com. I think they rebranded maybe. And so other things that I was interested in relatively locally, I would use that website to kind of connect with. So just random, I got into a car club and some other stuff a long time ago before Jameson knew me a long time ago. And, all that came out, and that's not necessarily game related, but, just networking related.
Yeah.
Mutual friends. I think mutual friends is still number one for me. Almost always, we're playing games online, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're playing games online with other people. And some of those other people are also game developers. And so maybe Jameson and I are over here playing World of Warcraft one day, and you happen to hop into Discord with us or something, and we're like, oh, come over here and play this with us. And then next thing you know, you're in a raid group with 9 other game developers, and you're performing really well. You're keeping your cool every time we wipe. You're even helping us do better. You're keeping the morale up. All those little things add up, right? And we're like, man, we like this dude. I don't even know who this dude is, but I like him.
Yeah.
And I want him to come back next week. And then eventually we realize, oh, you're going to school for game design or something. Well, shit. Let's talk about that too and help you out. And, it's just an organic, mutually beneficial, and genuine experience.
I think it is so important to utilize the contacts that you have. Right. And so like you're saying, if someone knows you and they come into your space and you've invited them and now others are around, that's your in. It's such a great way to meet people. And I'm going to step aside for 1 second, because I am constantly amazed at how few people jump into my Discord, because it's readily available. We talk about game development. I'm surprised more people don't utilize that, because there's a lot of devs in there, right? There's people you can connect with on a daily basis in the right way, which is we're just talking about random stuff, right? And that's how you find out who you connect with, who cares about particular games or particular situations and scenarios. And they want to talk about this, ask for advice. Like there's so much stuff that can be done in something like a community Discord that's not utilized well enough for people. That I think people don't realize how important those kind of connections are to, that lead the way into much bigger things.
That's a very empathetic way of seeing it. I dig that. I was having a harsher perspective as you were saying that, but no, you're absolutely right. Because for me, like, I don't know how many times I've told people, here's my contact information. Here are the subjects I would be happy to discuss with you. Follow up with me on any of the above. And then crickets, right? No one ever takes me up on it. Or I'll get some relatively not great email or tweet or LinkedIn message that's like, kind of cringy. Like, I'm still going to try to respond and help you, but like, you could have done a lot better than that. And so, but then I'll take that moment to be like, hey, turn into a coaching moment. This is how you could have come across a little better. Next time you message somebody, consider these things. Rob Coble taught me that one. Turn everything into a coaching moment when it's cringy. And, but yeah, no, what you said, spot on.
And there's so many opportunities and I think this is something I'm going to beat this down constantly, because when people talk about networking and they're asking, how do I network? They're thinking about the end goal all the time, right? When they're asking that question. And to me, the biggest part of it is those immediate interactions and the things that don't, like, when you're doing it, you're not thinking about what it's going to eventually result in, because that's not what matters right now. What matters is making that connection. Eventually it could mean a lot,
Yeah, but how could they possibly know what that end goal is? Like they're not going to get it right. Like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I want to be a creative director at so-and-so studio one day. Well, you don't even really know what that means.
That's true.
Like most people that say that have no idea what that role actually does, the skills it takes to do that, which is super difficult, by the way. Not a job I'm looking forward to one day. And there's a lot of layers to that. And instead I guess what I'm trying to get at here is so many people like the idea of something and refuse to apply the discipline and otherwise the attitude it takes to get there. And I tend to sniff that out pretty quick in most of the few messages I do receive. Yeah. It's like, oh, you like the idea of being a game designer, but you're not following any of my advice.
Oh man. Let's talk about that for just a second. Sure. If you're going to ask somebody questions, right? Like one of the things I recommend to people is if you want to work somewhere, you even see a job opening and you know of someone that works there, I think it's a great thing to reach out and be like, hey, what's it like to work there? Like, don't be like, hey, I'm trying to get this job. Can you help me? That's immediately an ask. You can't ask, right? Like that's not how you lead. Come in for information. People are fine giving information generally, right? So come in, ask me what it's like to work there, whatever. If I get a good vibe off of you and then it comes up, maybe that's a way that I'll help get your foot in the door. But if you come in and are talking and asking for advice, the second I see you're not following that advice or having made no efforts to do any of the things that I've talked to you about, it's no longer worth my time, right? Like I only have so much energy to give to so many people. And if I feel like I've literally wasted time, that's going to sour me to helping you anymore.
Yep. Well said. That's right.
It's rough.
Yeah.
But
it's funny. I remember, and there are examples of like graduates when I used to teach at Full Sail and stuff that did not follow anything I said. They probably didn't like me, and that's fine. And they made it. So that's awesome. They made it into the industry in their own way and did their thing, and they didn't follow my advice. So it's not like we're sitting over here saying, we know everything.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty dissatisfying when I take a couple hours of my life to give portfolio feedback, resume feedback, just talk about career stuff, all this, and then you either do nothing, which is the worst thing, or you blatantly do other things that are less effective. It's just disappointing.
Yeah. The last thing that any of us who are in the industry want to do is waste our time. And that's a harsh thing to say, but it's true because like me, I love mentoring. I love giving advice. I love helping people try to get where they want to go. but I only have so much energy. I only have so much time. And whenever I feel like that's not being valued by the person I'm giving it to, that sucks, right? Like that makes me not want to do it anymore.
Yes, sir.
But
fortunately, that hasn't happened too much. I've got way more positive stories than not positive stories.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, me too. And I think that's one thing that I found is true. And Game Dev Josh just said this in the chat. Game developers are insanely nice. Most people want to help, and that is weird. Like, you don't get that in the movie industry. You don't get that in a lot of other entertainment industries. People here definitely do want to help, and they care about everybody wants to work with good people. So, you know what I mean? And if they feel like you're a good person, then are good at what you do, they want to have you around.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true.
So we have diverged a bit from GDC. I want to make sure we get back to that a little bit. Someone who is interested in getting into the games industry, how important is their attending GDC?
Every answer you can imagine, someone would say to this question. So grain of salt, this is only my opinion, right? Seriously, grain of salt. I think GDC super duper matters. Can you get into the game industry without going to GDC? Oh, of course you can. Will it potentially make your life a lot easier to go to GDC and then get into the game industry? Yes, it will. Again, potentially. You could also just not gain anything from it. That's a real possibility. But I'd like to suggest you're not doing it right if you gain nothing from that whole investment. So, GDC, the networking, again, right? It's what it's all about. Being in the same place. You know, there's thousands of attendees at GDC, tens of thousands in some years, right? And well, most years recently. And so you go there, and I'm just going to make up a number because I don't remember anymore. Let's say there's 20,000 attendees in the upcoming GDC, the upcoming physical GDC that might happen next year and stuff. And if all that works out and happens, you know, that's 20,000 people that are there for relatively the same reasons you're there. They might have a few years experience on you, but they still were in the same shoes you're in, and they're still, for the most part, going to be sympathetic to that and want to enable you. Yeah. And I think GDC, but I mean, because earlier, right, we discussed all the educational benefits, all of the expo floor benefits, general networking. We didn't even get into nightlife really yet, and that's a whole thing. And so, and I can't stress enough, you know, crashing in a hotel room with like 5 other people, that does not sound pleasant, and it's not. In some ways, but in others, like I said, it's memorable, it's exciting, it's we're here in the trenches doing the thing, and there's a lot of magic that happens from going to that conference. And you'll walk away your first year and be like, man, I did all these things, I could have done all these things better. And then hopefully you go back a second year and you do all those things better, and then you come out and you're like, oh man, I could have done all these other things better. And you're like, yeah, okay. And year after year, you know, attending for a decade, I can stress there are every single year I've walked away with a ton of learning lessons. As well as a ton of new opportunities, many of which I could not have seen coming, and I could not have, you know, calculated. It was very organic. Yeah. And you got to be like, none of that's going to happen if you're not there. None of that's going to happen the same way from just like, I don't know, Twitter or LinkedIn or other online methods. Like, there are benefits to those, but I don't know anything that beats spending an entire week in person with a ton of people that also care about being the best game developers they can be. Yeah. Man, I completely agree with that. And it's interesting because when I first moved out to California from graduating, I was at GDC every year. Like, it was at least, you know, I could go for a day or two, whatever I needed to do. So I could get that, you know, I could get that expo pass for like $100, $150, whatever it is. And that would get me in to see all the things I need to see, but more importantly, allow me to see the people that I want to see. And we'll talk more about that nightlife here in a minute. But there is no conference that even comes remotely close to the value of being there, in my opinion. If you care about game development, it is literally the only place to be, and you need to be there. Yeah, I agree. Now, that doesn't make us right for everyone in all of their individual circumstances, but if you can, you should. Right. And when you were talking about planning early, the earlier you plan, the cheaper it's going to be, right? Because cost is 100% the thing that everyone says to me. And I get it, and I agree, and I understand. There were times where
I couldn't afford to go back because you're talking about, flight, hotel, food, and the if you want to like go to the other, to the summits and things we talked about, now you're looking at like, 1,500 to $2,000 for the tickets, right?
Yep.
But if you want to get out there, do the expo for 3 days, bunk with some people, find a cheap flight. The earlier you do that, the better chance you've got. You just got to be prepared for it and plan for it, right? If you want to do GDC, like we've got one coming up in July, right? Next month online. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Sure.
But the next one will be next March, right? So now you've got several months to start thinking about getting your ticket, all of that kind of stuff. If you can't afford that one, start saving for the next one. Like figure out a way to get there.
That's absolutely right. Or you could do what I do, and just not pay for GDC. That'd be weird.
Oh man.
So like, conference associate. I mentioned that a couple times earlier, but didn't go into detail, right? So many conferences, really all of them I attend, I can't think of one that doesn't do this, has a force, a volunteer force. Though it's not always volunteer, like you get paid sometimes, but I'm just going to call it volunteer for the sake of simplicity here. So there are these volunteer forces that help operate the entire conference. PAX has their enforcers. BlizzCon recently started doing their own thing. I don't know what they're called, but they were awesome. Conference associates is the GDC way, etc. And so, you get from the GDC side, in my personal experiences, you get like an all access pass. You just have to work X amount of hours.
And the vault, right? You get everything.
You get a lot of things, right? Yeah. Like I get hotels with significant discounts. I get the full all access pass, including the GDC vault for the next year, subscribed for free. Well, not for free because I'm doing stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, right. And included.
Right, it's all included. And again, some of these volunteer forces do have hourly wages to only further help you sustain the economic burden of trying to attend these things. And not even the more monetary bits, but the networking. You go back to it, right? It's like, man, I've gotten to be one of 400 to 450 conference associates through all these years. And I've gotten to work alongside so many other incredible people, whether they are trying to get into the industry and they're currently students, whether they've been in the industry for 20 years and just love giving back. And I mean, there are titanic people in the conference associates that absolutely dwarf me in my career. They're just incredible people in every way. And it's really cool that they come back every year to continue to serve as well, because we all are unified in that belief that we want to make sure the attendees have the best damn experience they can possibly have at GDC. So if you ever come out to GDC and purchase any ticket to attend, you're going to meet people like me that are laser focused on making sure you have the best experience you can. And we take a lot of pride in that and a lot of joy in that, and help each other only do that better year over year. So I say all this context to say, you too could try to be a conference associate. You can apply on the GDC website when the applications are up. There's a particular page you can find on there that does all that. And you can apply. You have to write an essay, 1,500 characters or less, on why they should select you to be a conference associate. And if everything works out, you get to be selected as one of the 400, 450, whatever the number ends up being for the next one, and be among a lot of really, really, really amazing people. Because the selection, like when you get selected to be a conference associate, it is so humbling yet enabling, because you're like, I've done the thing. And then you're like, oh shit, I've done the thing. What's next? What do I do? How do I prepare? How do I not mess this up? And all the thoughts that we would have, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyway, there's a lot of people that are incredible. Like you've had Grant Schonkweiler, right? Schonkweiler's been a conference associate longer than me. He's an incredible dude. In fact, earlier he Discord messaged me and he was like, "Oh, you're talking tonight about GDC. Just tell everyone be a CA, ship it. That's it.
Right?
Be a conference associate. You're done." And some of us have been very fortunate to do that. But again, it's just tremendous benefits. Please apply. Please apply. I can't stress enough. If there's nothing else you're going to do when it's during that window, usually the window, assuming GDC is in March, usually the window opens in like September, October, and kind of closes by Christmas or so, maybe by New Year's Eve or so. But it's all detailed on the website when it happens. and just write that essay, please take the time, write that essay. If you want to write that essay, and then you want to like sleep on it, and then maybe you want to like talk to someone like me about it, LinkedIn message me, tweet me. I'm happy to talk to you about these things. We always want to elevate the conference associate program. And at the same time, because we can only take so few people, we have to, well, not me, but the folks that support me that operate it, they have to make hard decisions left and right on, we have like thousands of worthy applicants. How do we
Yeah.
select such a small subset of those to come this year? And so, it's a real big deal to get in there, and life changing in so many ways. So
That's
many ways, personally, professionally. The conference, you see it from a whole different perspective. And there's a lot of full sail grads that have been in the conference associate. I mean, probably more than 50 full sail grads have been CAs at this point,
oh
maybe more.
nice.
So it's a good chunk of us, and we tend to know each other. Your Hall of Famer Albert Perez, he's been one forever. Shank, another Hall of Famer, been it forever at Full Sail. Tons of people I'm blanking on, but yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was that many. That's awesome.
Yeah, when I first got in, I was around number 30 of Full Sail grads, and then since then, I've definitely seen some more. In fact, a few of my students have gotten in. They're
Nice.
all, former students, so they've, it continues to grow. Full Sail continues to infiltrate.
I'm curious. So conference associates, what's kind of the ratio of work time versus play time when you're there?
Yeah, so this is variable. I would expect, what does the application usually say? I'm paraphrasing, right? Don't hold me to this. I should be in the ballpark though. I think you should expect to work 20 to 25 hours as a conference associate.
Over how many days?
For the duration of the event. So from the CA perspective, our work could start on Sunday and it could end Friday evening. In fact, it does end Friday evening. We do stuff Friday evening. So kind of sort of 6 whole days. So within that 6-day period, you might work 20 to 25 hours, which is really not a lot of time. It's incredible. And then most of that time you can still make meaningful for both the attendees and yourself. Because especially if you're a first year CA, you're mostly stationed at like greeting areas or operating doorways into specific sessions. And for things like that, you're not alone. You have a veteran CA like me that's on every shift with you. And you might have a couple other CAs with you as well. A lot of shifts may have 3 or 4 CAs in a particular spot. So, at minimum, when you're not focused or when you don't need to be focused on making the attendees experience as great as it can be, you can take a second and, kind of get to know your other CAs and that kind of thing with any downtime. So, it is what you make it, but there's a lot of opportunity there. And some of my best friends for life, are fellow CAs. Like I can't stress enough, my relationship with Albert and Grant, a couple, again, people that we mentioned earlier, they are partially so important to me because I got to share being a conference associate with them year after year, and that just elevated us further. There's a lot of, and the reason I go to BlizzCon is because one of the most veteran CAs of the program of the like 20 some 30 years now, whatever, I guess we're north of 30 years now for GDC. He inspired me, and my first Sunday being there, walking around, not having a clue what I was doing in my very first few hours of being a conference associate, he saw me probably looking goofy, not knowing what I was doing. And he was like, hey man, this and that. And he kind of took me under his wing, and he became a dear, dear friend of mine that I make sure I get to hang out with every BlizzCon. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's, man, the value of something like that, I think, is incredible. And especially since we talk about how most people, their concern is the cost, that is such a great way to, to kind of alleviate a lot of that and make sure you can still participate. Yeah.
Like I got in my first year as a student in graduate school, and that was very fortunate. And I wouldn't have even known to apply if it wasn't for one of my teachers that was like, hey, this is a thing. All of you students should do the thing. And then I happened to be the only student that actually got accepted. And that was just also very humbling and mind-blowing, and just, set me up for that much more opportunity.
Yeah.
So I can't thank Ron McCoben enough, because she was the one that said it. I was in her class that month in my grad school, and she was like, yo, do the thing. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm going to do the thing.
Yeah.
And worked out.
Nice. All right, let's talk. We've got about 20 minutes left. I want to make sure we talk a little bit about the virtual convention. Um, this is going to be, wait, we didn't do a virtual GDC last year, did we? No. This is going to be the first like full on virtual GDC, right? Is that true?
So there was a virtual GDC effort before that occurred. I don't believe it was 5 days. I wasn't involved with operating it, and I'm not involved with the one coming up next month. But as far as the online ones go, yeah, this one is supposed to be larger than the last one.
Okay.
But yeah, last year they did attempt to do something. I want to say in August is when it happened. August 2020.
So the thing we're going to miss out on is the most important part, which is the nighttime, right? With the getting together with people, the drinking, the making connections.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about any kind of virtual mixer scenario for this?
You know, I'm completely useless here. I have not heard anything, but I would be shocked if it didn't exist, right? So what I would immediately do, which I'm going to do after we're done talking here, I need to go check relevant GDC Twitter accounts and that kind of thing. I'm sure people are tweeting and retweeting these things. I'm sure there's particular hashtags I need to catch up on and follow. And yeah, it's got to be a thing, right? Like, it's got to be a thing. People, knowing Discord, I'm sure they're in the mix. Are like, yo, make sure to use Discord to do ABC, and they're real smart about that stuff. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that there are virtual mixers. I just don't have a solid example.
So you mentioned relevant Twitter accounts. If there's things that you feel like people that are interested in GDC should be keeping an eye on, send me those links and I'll put them in the show notes so people will know to follow those.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, in case anyone is listening and wants it right now and doesn't necessarily remember to check the notes, literally go to Twitter, go to the search bar, type in GDC, like do that. 100% do that right now while you're listening. And you will immediately get a list of obvious stuff, one of them being the GDC conference official account. And from that, you can look through the home feed of that account, right? And like, oh, some people are using particular hashtags around this or that. And you can start piecing together the web that is whatever's going on. But similarly, if you want to pay attention to my Twitter at all, I will attempt to put effort into helping do the homework and find this out, and I'll retweet relevant stuff accordingly. But
Nice.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you on other info.
That was a great plug. I like that. That's a good way to do that. You know what?
I don't
Just
mind.
come to me.
I'll whatever. But for those of you that are paying attention, I'll do my best to support that.
I love it. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. So I have a conference pass for this one that rolled over from last year that didn't happen. So I'm going to be curious to see, because the talks that I'm seeing advertised actually look pretty good. And the nice thing about a virtual GDC is there's no limit to room sizes, right? Like everybody can see everything, which is cool, right? And there'll still be the recorded versions that you can watch anytime, all of that stuff. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do as far as like the in the moment. Is there going to be like a chat that's happening while this thing is happening? I don't know. So we'll have to see like what's happening, that how it's going to be structured, because it's going to feel very different. I'm nervous. I'm a little nervous that this GDC is going to be the parts that you and I feel are we can skip those parts and get them later. And you know what I mean? Like the talks and things that we can always watch on the vault later. The human interaction, that part of it, which is so valuable. I don't know how that part's going to happen yet. So we might need to have a post-mortem in August about this, where we talk about what was virtual GDC like, what were the benefits, how did it go, what could they improve. Might be a good thing for us to talk about actually in one of these. But I'm a little nervous, and I'm curious what that's going to be like.
Yeah, I think they learned a lot last year. And, doing a GDC online is not new. We did GDC online in Austin, Texas for many years, for a while there, before that more or less got shut down. So yeah, I think, UVM has a killer team behind this that really know what they're doing and are kind of best in class at it. So
good. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I have the full confidence it'll go super well.
That's encouraging. That's
as well as it can for a remote version of it. Yeah.
Well, we're also
networking is the hard part.
Yes.
Simulating that is kind of impossible.
So now that's one thing that's interesting. We were talking before about ways to network and ways to get to know people. So one of the things Full Sail is doing is they're having alumni mixers that are all in Zoom. And
Yeah, I keep missing those.
you need to do one. They're really
I know the
cool.
Georgia one just happened, and I was like, crap. My
Yeah.
new company's in Georgia, and I totally just blanked on it. It just happened like a week or two ago.
And you
And
could
they were
join any
talking to
of
me
them.
about helping support a Raleigh one, or a North Carolina one, so I'll reconnect.
Yeah. It's cool because like everybody comes in, they do a little bit of talk. There's people that are hosts, and then they throw small groups into these breakout rooms. You got a half hour to talk to, 5-6 people, depending on how many are there. That is the networking dream.
It is the dream.
And it's really interesting, but I've been in a few of those, and every time people are quiet and they're nervous and they only talk when they're spoken to. And I'm like, man, this is your opportunity. And I was in this recent one for Florida, and there were 2 people that are interested in game development in some way. They didn't ask me anything. And I'm like, it's clear who I am, what I've done, why I'm here. I'm trying to get information. Like I'm literally giving you my time and asking you to ask me stuff, and they still are not seizing the opportunity. So it's really interesting. Like, you've got to take these opportunities, like use them, learn what you can, make a connection, man.
Yeah. I mean, easier said than done, but you're absolutely right. But again, I try to make sure, and I know you do this too. I try to be as empathetic as I can. I try to remember when I was in their shoes. I try to imagine what it would be like to be in a similar shoes in 2021 during the later phases of a pandemic and all the variables that are in one's life. And so, I would find myself in similar situations, not those, but I try to ask somebody 20 questions. I try to get them to talk. Like we said,
exactly.
2 hours ago, it's about getting them to talk about themselves and all. But yeah, we can only do so much.
That is, we can only do so much. You're 100% right. And you got to meet part way. And if you're going into this, you need to be the one that's extending yourself, right? You need to be the one that's looking for opportunities. It's pretty clear to pick up when people are trying to get people to talk, trying to find out about each other. Pick up on those cues, man. Find an opportunity. Like, don't be overbearing, obviously, but use those opportunities to get people to know you, to learn about other people. That stuff can mean a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we have so many interests. Like, Jameson and I have a lot of overlapping interests and a lot of individual interest. And all you've got to do is tap into one of those.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at my Twitter feed and you see the things I retweet, well, that's a great place to start, because I'm retweeting things I care about. Like, oh shit, Will keeps retweeting Hunt Showdown stuff because Will's really into Hunt Showdown. Maybe I should check that game out during this Steam. So I don't know. I get no benefit if you go purchase Hunt, for the record. I'm just saying as an example,
right?
You connect those dots and you're like, oh, I'll create an opportunity. And I'd probably respond to that and be like, okay, fine, let's play a match or two and we'll shoot the shit while we do it and we'll figure it out. So, yeah. And with your Discord and your whole community, like, it's easier than ever to attend your community events, even you host such accessible games like the Jackbox party games and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of opportunity.
The thing I love most about a game like Jackbox, and this is why I love to do it as part of the community, is a lot of those games are about understanding who the people are that are playing. So it's a really great opportunity to learn stuff about people. And you may make some mistakes early on, right? Like, you may assume someone will think something is funny. You may assume they care about something. You find out they don't, you've learned something, right? Like, that's not an avenue I should talk about. There's so much there that's easy to find a way to connect with someone. Connection is what's so important. So important.
Yep. We'll keep saying it. We'll keep preaching the good word. Hopefully more and more people are enabled by it.
That's the dream.
Yeah. And like, we're all nerds, right? We're all awkward. I'm super awkward. We all have our interests. It's just about honing on this interest and making sure that we're being mutually beneficial and good to one another and good to each other, which is a whole nother talk. Or I'm sorry, good to oneself, which is a whole other talk. Like, it's a lot of simple principles that just take tremendous discipline to apply and exercise, and a lot of failures along the way to then grow from.
Oh, I love that you said that, because failing is learning, man. And in this case, this is where you fail to learn. Get out there and make mistakes. Like you may absolutely not make a connection with someone, but you'll have some information about why you didn't. Like that didn't work in this case. Maybe I don't try that again. Or I try that again with someone else and it does work. And now you get to talk about or think about why did it work with them and not with this other person? It's all about information gathering, learning, one, about yourself mostly, and two, learning how to be like socially aware. This is something that I see a lot of younger people really struggling with right now, especially with how much of their interaction is online. Sure. Is how to be a social in-person person. It's not easy. It takes work. It really does take work.
Yep. Yeah. And totally, if I walk into a room and I don't know anyone, I'm just as awkward as all of you may or may not be in that situation. Right. Like I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to get across. I'm trying to humanize us here. Like, we are accessible and we understand and we've gone through the same things and continue to go through the same things. We just happen to have a few years in our careers that you may or may not have too.
Yep.
But that's the only real difference.
Like, we've gone through that pain, so we want to tell you which pains not to go through.
That too.
As much as we can.
Learn from our mistakes. Yeah.
And for me specifically, like, this is something I care a lot about. Like, I want people to be able to put their best foot forward. So I'm always happy. Reach out to me, talk to me about things that you did that didn't go well. Ask me questions about how you could approach this better. I am always willing to have those conversations with any of you. So feel free to reach out to me on Discord, whatever. We'll have that conversation, because so much of this is learning, like, best practices, right? What we are talking about is what you and I feel are best practices. That doesn't mean they're going to work all the time, right? But we feel like most of the time it's going to get you at least in the direction that you want to go.
Yep.
So we've only got like 5 minutes left. I want to ask you this one question. What are mistakes that you have to avoid in the conference scene?
Yeah. Okay. I can go with a few of these real quick. So, like, don't touch people. Oh, I just got to point that one out. Like, so especially in nightlife, but this kind of applies everywhere. Like, I have seen some real awkward physical bits, and not like super inappropriate or sexual or whatever, but like, if you walk up to me and try to give me a hug and you don't know me, right? Like, did not immediately open my arms, maybe abort mission, like adjust something. Don't be coming at me and like hugging me with like my arms closed or other weird stuff. And man, don't come up from behind. Do not hug people from behind. Never. Side note. It's just, I see this at every GDC and stuff, right? Daytime and nighttime. People just are awkward. And, I sympathize. I'm like, okay, you know what? You may not know better for whatever reasons, or you were just really excited and not thinking straight, or whatever the case may be. So it's not like I hate you, but it's like, that was not the best decision. And that would possibly notice that you did that thing. So, just be relatively safe and think things through. And I don't know. Yeah, just take an extra moment to think about stuff. Besides that, don't drink too much. If you enjoy alcohol and attend something like GDC at night, I can't stress that enough. Like, really try to maintain whatever that measurement is that you are seeking that may or may not give you the right confidence or swagger or whatever you think is happening by you consuming things. Yep. That's cool. You do you. Whatever that is. Whatever. Fine. You do you. But, be responsible, be smart about it. And, because there's so many times where I've seen people make asses out of themselves. Oh, my God. Many times. And that stuff is remembered. We are a small industry. We will continue to be a small industry. We really do know each other. And, if I'm going to interview you and I realize we have a mutual friend, I might ping that mutual friend and be like, yo, how do you know so-and-so? I'm going to interview that person maybe. And then they might be like, oh, yeah, that person looked like an asshole at this party. I'm like, great. That's great. That's not what you want to be remembered for. So just, be responsible, think it through. We make mistakes, but if you're going to make a mistake, I don't know, Make sure it's minor and not harmful and hopefully not memorable.
All right, real quick, I'm going to give a best practice for the drinking because
Sure.
I 100% agree with you. Now, I am a firm believer that a couple of drinks loosens people up, right? You've got to know your threshold, right? Maybe that's one drink for you, whatever that is. But when you know what you're like, this is where I want to get to because I'm more affable, I'm more outgoing, whatever that is. I say drink 2 drinks and then water and then alternate. Because quite simply, if you drink a glass of water, every glass of water you drink has the alcohol content for the drink that you're about to drink. So now you've reduced the effects, right? So if you drink a couple of drinks, and that's what you feel good about, have a water, then have another drink, then have a water, have another. It's like I said, a best practice thing, but it'll keep you from making a complete ass out of yourself, most likely.
I do have a rule of drinking a pint of water between each cocktail if I can.
Yeah.
Granted, I mean, blood alcohol content will continue to increase despite your water intake.
It will.
Yeah, hydration super matters for a billion reasons to your body. So definitely do that.
Yeah. And then the thing that you said about the hug is really interesting to me. I'm a hugger, and I think I'm really good at seeing when someone wants that.
Yeah.
But if they do not, here's what I suggest. If you're going in for a hug and someone is not reciprocating, pull one hand down, hit them on the shoulder as you stand beside of them, right? Just like a pow. Now, hey man, you know what I mean? Like that at least you get the touch and the connection that you were looking for, even if they don't want it. Like, but it's not a super uncomfortable situation. And now you're turned, you're next to them, and you can join in the conversation.
That's true. And often they'll respond by putting like their hand behind you, either over your shoulder or maybe lower on your back or whatever. But yeah, it's a safer way to go about it.
It's a great abort.
It's a great abort. Yeah. And the one I was kind of do physically on the camera there was for me, and I guess it's probably obvious when I do it, but I convert my hug stance into a handshake stance.
Oh,
because it's a rare day someone will not give me a handshake.
The last thing you want is someone feeling uncomfortable because they feel like you're unsafe. That's like, that is the last thing you want right now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we could probably talk another 30 to 60 minutes on nightlife at these conferences and do's and don'ts. So maybe we revisit that at some point.
I think we should, actually. I think that's a really good topic for us next month because that's... There's a lot there because it is the most important part. And there are so many hypotheticals and so many scenarios. And as a matter of fact, maybe we should start a list of things we want to touch on next time because it's different every time. And you need to be ready.
Yeah.
You and I we prepare. And it's funny because I'm very good in the moment. Things change, I'll adapt, but that's because I've prepared beforehand and I know what the right kind of adjustments are to make. And I want that for all of you.
That's right.
All right, man, we've hit time. Any last bits of wisdom that you want to throw, or do you want to, any way you want to make sure people are able to contact you if they have questions, or both?
Yeah, so a couple moments ago, I tossed my Twitter handle in the chat. We can make sure that's in your notes and stuff as well. Twitter is generally an easy way to catch me. I'm the only Will Fitzgerald III that I know of. So if you pop that into LinkedIn or other things, you'll find me pretty quick. There's like 40 Will Fitzgeralds that I found when Googling. So I started rocking my third to try to make that easier on everyone. But yeah, as I'll continue to say, please feel free to tweet me, LinkedIn message me, email me. All my contact info is like on my Twitter, and it's also on my LinkedIn contact info tab, so you can access everything there. Happy to talk about things. Truly happy to talk about things. Anything I've said here, anything that you disagree with, want to discuss further, whatever the case may be. I think in all these years, maybe 10 to 20 people have ever taken me up on this offer, so feel free to be the next one. And yeah, whatever it is, you want to talk about game design, you want to talk about, like I said, material from here, conferences, anything you think I might be helpful for, I am happy to share my knowledge.
All right, man. I'm going to jump off and say my goodbyes. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon.
Cool.
Man,
Take care.
later, buddy.